commercial buildings, and we can see that space heating, lighting, and air conditioning, that accounts for 65% of the total use in commercial buildings. But now let's just focus on energy. So there's users, so focus on education. These buildings that use 12 or 13% of the 18 to 19%, this adds up to 614 trillion BTUs of energy. That's 614 times 10 to the 12th. So how is this figure broken down in the different uses in the buildings? We've got space heating, cooling, water heating, and that adds up to about 89% of the total use. So I've talked about 614 trillion BTUs. How much of this comes from electricity? So we have 221 BTUs. And that's 36%. Natural gas consumption is 40%. We're going to now just look at how much this costs. So even though natural gas, which accounts for 40% of the use, is more than using electricity, we're going to focus on electricity because that actually costs more. So what is the cost of 221 trillion BTUs of electricity? So electricity, we can see here, costs 72% of the total cost, and that's $5,168 million. And that's for electricity use alone in education buildings. Now these graphs and charts have been showing us these numbers in BTUs. But when I look at my household utility bill, I don't see BTUs, I see kilowatt hours. So we're going to do some little math here. So BTUs, kilowatt hours, and we can see the conversion rate, 1 kilowatt hour is 3,412 BTUs. So as we'll see, we're going to continue on in the presentation working with kilowatt hours and begin to see how these numbers add up. So here's a very simple example. So just looking at one room and a utility rate of 13 cents an hour, so that it adds up to $2.50 per room per school day. And I said 10 hours a day. So one room, $2.50, not quite $500 for the room for the year. 10 small room, small school, $4,750. So imagine if any of these rooms had their lights left on during the day. That's going to add up. You add in evening meetings, you add in summer sessions, you add in hundreds of rooms. Then you can begin to see how the total cost really begins to add up. So where does all this electricity come from? It has to be generated by something. So it comes from the burning of natural gas and coal. And that adds up to about 46% of the total sources use of energy consumption in all of the US. And you can see from this that they're talking about units of quadrillions BTUs. I had to look it up because I didn't remember. A quadrillion is 10 to the 15. So we're using a lot of energy. And for education buildings, where we saw how much earlier we were using, that was 221 trillion BTUs. So of this, go back one, whoops. We can see petroleum, natural gas, and coal, but there's only a small part that comes from renewable sources, only 8%. So the other 92% is non-renewable. But that's what we're using. And eventually, sometime we're going to run out. But we know about that. So what's next as we work with our education buildings or any buildings? We have to educate on the importance of reduction of use, improve management of what we are using, reduce our energy consumption in our buildings, and we have to educate on smart use of energy. And we are waiting for and demanding increased availability of renewable energy. So I thank you for your attention, and now I'm going to pass it over to Mike Lavelle,